Hello guys, welcome back to this amazing series. In this lesson, we'll be discussing the stop procedure. Before we proceed, what is stop procedure? A stop procedure is a named, reusable block of SQL code in the database, which can be executed by calling its name, often with input parameters. It is used to automate logic, simplify reporting, and reduce redundancy in code pipelines. Now, let's see the syntax of it now. We start with the delimiter. We create our stop procedure. Now the name we actually want to use and the parameter. The name of the stop procedure, that's the parameter. We begin with the what? With the select statement of it, and we end it along with the what? With the delimiter. Now, why the stop procedure matters in data engineering? Now, the use cases of it: 1. Reporting, ETL automation, data validation, complex join encapsulation. Now, the purpose of all these use cases are: for the reporting now, it generates dynamic reports with filters. The ETL automation pre-process or clean data before load. Data validation enforce business rules in database layer. And for the complex join encapsulation now, simplify nested query across multiple tables. Now, let's actually solve some business questions using this stop procedure, and let's see how it goes. This first question says multiple customer payment summary report batch ETL use case. That's what we actually want to use. What this question is actually saying is that how can we generate a reusable summary report of all customers' total payment activities over a specific period of time? Now, let's actually solve that. Here we'll be starting with our what? With our delimiter. In this question now, we'll start with our delimiter. We'll be using our circular database again, along with what? Customers table. Now, these are our customers table and the payments table also, because this question actually relates to the what? To the payments table. Let me just scroll down and bring out the payments table. Now, these are our payments table also. Let's come back to where we actually want to write our query now. Now, let's start. We start with the delimiter. Delimiter. Now, let's create our stop procedure now. Create procedure. Now, what do we actually want to name? Let me name this as get payment summary. Let me just say get payment summary for customers. Open parentheses. Now, I will be using I want to start date. When the payment actually starts, start date. Now, I'll classify that as date, comma. Now, again, I want to see the end date. I'll just give that as a date too. Now, come down. Sorry. Let me leave it. End date. Now, I'll just come here a bit. Close parentheses. Now, I will begin. Now, what I want to select now, select from the customers table. I'll bring out the customer underscore ID, comma. I want to concat concat, open parenthesis. What do I want to concat? From the customers table, I want to bring out the first underscore name, underscore name, comma, first underscore name, last underscore name, close parenthesis, as customer underscore name, comma. Now I want to use the sum. What else? Before I use this one, let me use the count. Count, open parenthesis. What do I want to count? I want to count the payment ID. That from the payment table. Payment underscore ID. Close parenthesis. As I'll give it an alias of what? Total underscore payment. Total underscore payment, comma, sum, open parenthesis. Now what I want to sum? I want to sum the what? The amount from the payments table, close parenthesis. I'll give it an alias of what? Total underscore amount. Now I want to round this now. I'll use it along with my average. The window function of average. Open parenthesis. Average of what? I want to get the average of this what? Amount. Close parenthesis, comma. Now 2. That means I want it in 2 decimal place. Give it an alias average underscore payment. Average underscore payment. Average underscore payment from payment table. Now we've actually used 2 tables now, the customers table and the payments table. Let's join them now. Join customer. I'll give it an alias of C on what they have in common. Customer underscore ID. Customer underscore ID equals customer underscore ID. This is it. So that's what they both have in common. Customer underscore ID. Now, where payment underscore date, where payment date between the start date that we used earlier, the start underscore date, and end underscore date. We want to know when the payment actually starts and when it actually ends. Now, I want to group by I'll be using the customer ID from the customers table. Customer underscore ID from the customers table. Now let's actually check before we run this now. Okay, no error. Now let's end this now. End. Now we've ended it. Bring out our delimiter. Now let's run it now. Control enter. You can see now no error. Now let's actually call it out now. To call it out, call, what do we want to call out? This is the procedure we actually want to call out now. This is store procedure we want to call out. Get payment summary for customers. Open parenthesis. Now let's use some for a specific date. Now let's say 2005, because we are using the data in the default database. 2006. Let's use 1st of June. And bring out our end date now. Let's say 2005. Now let's say 1st of July. 1st of July. Now let's close this parenthesis now. Put a semicolon. Let's run this, control enter. You can see it now. It is perfectly okay. Now with the help of this stop procedure now, it takes the start date and the end date as input and return each customer's total number of payments that they've made. You can see now Mary Smith made how many payments? 7 payments. Patricia Johnson made 1 payment. Linda Williams 4. Barbara Jones and so on. Now, and also take into consideration the total amount they paid. You can see now it made the payment 7 times, and total amount Mary Smith paid was $1.93. Now, and the average was The average was 4.56. That it also takes the average payment into consideration. It uses the join to join the tables we actually used to for the query, and also group by and the group by for the aggregation function to prepare a structured result. And this is ideal for automated ETL jobs or scheduled revenue reporting. In a nutshell, this is a classic ETL report summarizing the customer's payment activity over the time. It is reusable, automated, and ideal for feeding dashboards, BI reports, or warehouse load. So let's move to the next question now. This second question says flag high value repeat customers, ETL dimension table. What this is trying to say is that who are our most loyal and high spending customers based on transactions count and total payments. Now let's create our store procedure now to actually determine that. Now we'll still be using our payment table along with with the customer table under the circular database. Now let's create our procedure now. Let's create our store procedure now. Delimiter. Now create procedure. Let's say get high value repeat customers. Get high value repeat customers. Open parenthesis. Now come in now. In now minimum underscore payment. I'll leave that as integer, comma, in again, minimum underscore total. underscore total, open parenthesis, sorry, underscore total. I'll leave that as decimal, open parenthesis. Now, close this parenthesis. Now, let me explain this before we actually proceed. Now, this delimiter sign, it means what? To tell my SQL to temporarily use this symbol instead of what? Instead of the colon. Sorry, instead of the semicolon we normally use. So the full procedure block is what? Is processed correctly. And what? And for this now, this is what we actually want to create. The name of the procedure we actually want to create. Get high value repeat customers. Now, in mini underscore payment integer, that means minimum number of the payment customers must have. For instance, let's say like 5. That's the meaning of this. Minimum number of the payment a what each customer must have. It must be an integer. Now, in mini underscore total, that means in decimal, let's say for instance now, minimum total the customer must what? Must spend. That's what this is actually talking about. Minimum minimum amount the customer must have spent. That's what this one is talking about. Now, for instance, let's say like 100 or 150. Now, so in decimal. Now, and this states that what? In two decimal place. Let's actually continue now. Now let's continue. Begin. What do we want to begin with? Let's select. Let me just leave it in capital letter. Select. Now, what I want to bring out, customer underscore ID. Customer underscore ID. Now, I want to concat. Concat. Open parenthesis. Now, first underscore name, comma. Now, in quote now. That's the concat sign. I want to bring out the last name, last underscore name, close parenthesis, give it an alias of what? Full underscore name. That's how I want it. Of the customer. Now, I want to count now. Count. What do I want to count? I want to count the what? The payment. From the payments table to count the payment date. The payment underscore ID. Close parenthesis. I want to give it an alias of what? Number. This number here. Number underscore payment. That we have in our procedure. Number underscore payment. Now I want to sum this now. Sum. Open parenthesis. What do I want to sum? I want to sum the payment and the amount from the payments table. As total underscore spent. Now I'll put a comma here so that it won't be giving us error. A comma here. Now let's actually continue. From where now? From customers table. Give it an alias of C. I will join those tables that are actually used together now. Join payment. That's P. What they have in common? On what? What they have in common now? That's customer underscore ID equals payment customer underscore ID. Now, group by customer. I want to group by customer underscore ID. Now, having count, open parenthesis, payment underscore id, close parenthesis, greater than or equals minimum payment. That means when this can do what? With the payment underscore id should be greater than what? The minimum payment. Greater than the minimum payment. Now, and I will come again and I want to sum it based on what we have earlier in our what? In our stop procedure. What I want to sum again now, the amount, close parenthesis, greater than or equals, that's the mini underscore total. That means minimum underscore total. Now let's end this now. End. Now, and don't forget delimiter. Along with our delimiter, semicolon. Now, let's run this now. Control enter. You can see now, no error. If you come here now and you click refresh, you will see your stop procedure there. You can see it now. That's get high value repeat customer. Now let's call it out now. Now call. What do I want to call? The name of the stop procedure. Get high value customers. Get high value. Okay. How it was being written. Okay. Let me just undo. Delete this. Get high value customer. Now, that means minimum of what? 5. For the what? For the minimum payment should be 5, and the maximum and the minimum total should be 100. That's the meaning of this I'm bringing out here now. Close parenthesis, hit on semicolon, control enter. Can you see it now? The minimum total for the payment now, you can see now everything we have here it will actually exceed 100, and the minimum number that we will have for the what? For the payment, minimum payment will be what? It will surely exceed 5. Now for this select now, customer underscore id from the customers table, and we concat with the first name and the last name. That's we give it as full name. Count what? Payment underscore id as number payment, and the what? Payment from amount from the payment table as total spent. Now this retrieve each customer's id and full name by combining their first name and their last name. That's the meaning of this statement. And for this now, let me scroll down. For this, count. Okay. Now we join the what? The two tables with what they actually have in common. Now, and for the count, now it counts how many payment transactions each customer has made. And from the what? From the group by now, the group by customer underscore id from the customers table. This group the data by what? Customers. By customer who by customers. So we can calculate aggregate like count and sum for each person. That's what the group by does there. And for the having count now, this having count by what? Payment underscore id from the payment table greater than the minimum payment and what? Sum greater than the what? Minimum total. Now This filters the results to show only customers who made at least minimum payments. Minimum payment. And for the what? And for the minimum underscore total now, that spent at least a specific amount of money. So that's why I bring it back here that what? Minimum of what? 5 and what? Maximum of 100. So if you are to give a decision based on this now, this query identify loyal and high value customers who make frequent purchases and spend heavily. So this is kind of useful when we want to what? Build a high value customer segment, creating marketing or VIP campaigns. Now, and in a situation whereby we want to use a what? Feeding dimension tables in a data warehouse. Let's solve the next question now. This question says data quality audit detect renters with no payment. Now, what this question is actually saying is that, let me give a scenario. Are there any renters that occurred without recorded payments, possibly due to what? Operational issue or what? Or data gap. So that kind of scenario can actually happen. Now, let's solve this question. I'll solve this and I'll solve the fourth question. The fifth question will be a class exercise. Now, let's actually create our store procedure now. Delimiter. Now, create procedure. Now, let's say find unpaid renter. Find unpaid renters, open parentheses, close parentheses. Now, begin. Now, let's select. We'll be using our renters table and our payments table. The question actually states it clearly. Now, select. Now, from the renters table, I want to bring out the renter underscore ID. Renter underscore ID, comma. Now, renter. So I want to bring out the customer underscore ID from there also. Customer underscore ID and the what? Renter again. I want to bring out the renter underscore date. Now, from where? From renters table, I'll give it an alias of R. Sorry. R. Now, I will left join. Payment. That's P. What they have in common? That's renter underscore ID equals payment. That's renter underscore ID. This is what they actually have in common. Now, where payment underscore ID. Payment underscore ID is null. Now, let's end this now. End delimiter let's run this. Control enter. You can see now no error. Now let's actually call this out now. Now to call it out, call the way we write it here now. Find unpaid rental, unpaid rentals, open parenthesis, close parenthesis, control enter. You can see now we don't have any value here. Now the stop procedure is functionally correct. The stop procedure is functionally correct and it returns no what result because the circular data has no what unpaid rentals. Now let's solve this question. Now this question says, how can we create a stop procedure that updates a customer activity snapshot table each day, capturing their total rental, last rental date, and total payment amount to power daily dashboard and reporting pipeline? Now this is a standard business question now. Now in the question they said snapshot table. Now a snapshot is a static copy of data at a specific point in time, typically used for reporting, tracking changes, or historical analysis. What this simply means is that a snapshot is like a daily screenshot of your data. It captures the state of something like, let's say, customer activities as it was that moment. That means at the way it is at that moment, so it doesn't change even the original data changes later. Before we answer this question now, before we create our store procedure, I will create a table in respect to this question now. So the table will now use it along with our what? With our store procedure. Now let's first of all create the table now. Now let's create the table here now. Now let's create the table first now. Create table if not exist. Now let's name it customer underscore activity based on the question underscore snapshot. Open parenthesis. Now what we want to put inside the table, this table will capture the what? The customer ID, customer underscore ID. Now I will leave it as integer, comma. Now total underscore rental. I will leave that as integer too, comma. Now last underscore rental underscore date. I will leave that as what? Date time, comma. Now total underscore payments, that's the next one. Total underscore payment underscore amount So I will leave that as what? Decimal, open parenthesis, close parenthesis, comma. Now, so 2 decimal place, comma. Now the next one is the snapshot underscore date. I'll just leave that as what? Date. Now close parenthesis, put a semicolon. Now let's run this now, control enter. You can see now no error. Now let's create our stop procedure now. Now we'll start with delimiter. Now create procedure That's what update customer activity snapshot. So open parenthesis, close parenthesis. Now begin. Let me just bring this here. Begin. Now that means we'll first, and what I actually want to do now is delete from what customer underscore activity underscore snapshot if it actually exists. That means delete from customer underscore activity underscore snapshot where snapshot underscore date equals what current underscore date semicolon. Now insert, let me bring a column down here. Insert into, now let me just copy this now, customer underscore activity, Control C, copy. Now bring it down here. Now open parenthesis. Now these are everything actually okay. Let me just bring it out here now. Customer underscore ID comma. Now the total rental. Those are the things I want to insert now. Total rentals, comma. Now last underscore renter underscore date, comma. Now total underscore payment underscore amount, comma. Now snapshot underscore date, close parenthesis. Now let's do it this way. Enter. Now let's continue. Let's select now. Select now from customer table. Now I'll bring out the customer underscore ID, comma. Now I will count. Now count open parenthesis. Now from the rentals table now I'll bring out the what? I'll bring out the rent underscore ID to replace underscore ID, close parenthesis, as what? We want to use to replace this total rental now. Total underscore rental. So that it can actually bring out values for us. Now the next one now, max. Open parenthesis. I'll use the what? From the rentals table again. Rental underscore ID. Now close rental underscore date. Close parenthesis. Give it an alias of last underscore rental underscore date. Now I'll use this collapsing. I'll use collapse, open parentheses. I'll use along with sum, open parentheses for the what? Amount. Close parentheses, comma. Now, close parentheses as total underscore payment. I'll now left join all those tables I actually use now. Underscore amount. Now, from where? Now, put a comma here. Put a comma here. Put a comma here. Now, I will now say current underscore date. Now, from customer on customers table, I'll give it C. Now, I will left join now. Left join renter, that's R, on what? What they have in common. That's what from customers table now. They both have customer underscore ID in common. Equals what? Renter underscore ID. Now again, now I will left join for the payment. That's what? On what? On customer underscore ID equals payment. That's customer underscore ID. Now I'll group by customer underscore ID. Now, semicolon. I will select. I want to select everything from where? From customer underscore activity underscore snapshots underscore snapshot. Now, where snapshot underscore date equals what? Current underscore date. Now put a semicolon here and and now delimiter put a colon, let me leave a space, put a colon. Now let's run this now. Let's actually check, is there any error? Okay, let's run this now. Control enter, no error. Now let's call it out now. Now I want to call out our procedure. Now let me just come here and copy it. This is what I want to what? Control C, copy. Now let's come down here. and paste this, Control V. Now, semicolon, Control Enter. Now, you're on a safe mode. Okay. Now, let's remove it from safe mode now. Let's come here. Now, this is how to remove it from safe mode. Set SQL underscore save underscore update equals 0. Now let's run this now. Control Enter. No error. Now let's come back here. Let's call it out now. Let's call out our procedure. Control Enter. You can see now. This is our customer ID. This is our total renter. This is the last underscore what? Renter date. These are the columns we actually created. Total underscore payment underscore amount, and what is the snapshot date. Now let's solve this last question now. This question says, how can we create a store procedure that classifies customer daily into tiers? Example, bronze, silver, gold, based on their total spending, and store that in a snapshot table to support loyalty campaigns and what? Customer segmentation reports. Now, what this question is actually talking about is, let me give a scenario relating to this question now. This question is actually talking about creating a system that automatically runs every day. That system should analyze customer spending, then assign each customer a loyalty tiers, like what? Bronze if they spend very little, silver for moderate spending, and gold for top spenders. And finally, store this result in a table that records each customer's tiers on a daily basis. This will help the business target customer better with loyalty campaigns and personalizing marketing. Now, let's actually solve this question now. Now, before we create our store procedure now, let's actually create a table relating to that now. Now, let's create the table now. Create table if not exist. If not exist. Now, let me just name the table customer underscore tier underscore snapshot. Now open parentheses. Now what I want to bring out is customer underscore ID. Customer underscore ID. Now I'll leave that as, let me just bring this around here. Oh, sorry, create table if not exist. Okay. Now customer underscore ID. I'll leave this as integer int, comma. Now I'll bring out my words. Total spending underscore spending. Now I'll leave this as what? Decimal, open parenthesis, comma 2, close parenthesis, comma. Now this tier, the tier we'll be actually using to classify them now. Here. Now I'll give it a varchar. The difference between varchar and char. Varchar. Now for the varchar, now open parenthesis, I'll leave it 20, close parenthesis, comma. Now snapshot. I will actually explain the varchar and char. Snapshot underscore date. I'll leave this as date. Now let's close this parenthesis now. Close parenthesis, semicolon. Let's run Control Enter. You can see now no error. Now let's proceed to our creating of the store procedure. Now I'll bring out my delimiter now. Delimiter. Now create procedure. What do we actually want to name the procedure? Classify customer customer now size. Now let me just name this as customer classify customer tiers. Now open parenthesis, close parenthesis. Now begin delete this actually exists, delete from customer underscore tier underscore snapshot. Sorry, let me write it the way it is there. Customer underscore tier underscore snapshot underscore snapshot. Now where snapshot underscore date, where snapshot underscore date, this now equals, I want the current date, current underscore date. Now put a semicolon. Now we are done with that. Now insert, let's insert in this. Now insert into customer underscore tier underscore snapshot. Now open parenthesis, customer underscore ID, comma. Now total underscore spending, comma, here snapshot underscore date, close parenthesis. Now select. Now what do I want to select now? I want to bring out the customer underscore ID, comma. Now I'll use the collars now. Collars function. Now open parenthesis along with my sum. Now what this collars actually means is that it returns the first known value from a list of values. Now it replaces missing value with default. It actually handle nulls in calculation. That's the essence of the what? Of the collars. So instead of giving us empty, I make use of the collars along with the what? With the sum. Now what I want to sum? Now open parenthesis from the payments table. Now I want to sum the what? The amount, close parenthesis, comma. That's why I'm using this zero, close parenthesis. Now giving it an alias as total underscore spending, comma. Now I want to use case. Now when the reason why I'm using this case is that when this, we have our tier that we said bronze, silver, and gold. I want to actually use this case to determine the what? to determine the tier now. Now, when sum, open parenthesis, payment, in the payment table now, choose the amount, close parenthesis, is less than 100. Let's say it's less than 100. Then, in quotes, give it what? Bronze. Bronze. Now, in quotes, when, again, sum, open parenthesis. Now, from the payment table again, amount, close parenthesis, is less, is between between 100 and 500. Then, in quotes, give it silver. Give it silver. When sum, open parenthesis, from the payment table again, amount, close parenthesis, is greater than, this time around, is greater than 500, then give it what? Gold. Cut it back. Else, bronze. That means we don't want it to leave it empty. Bronze. Now, let's end it now. End as what? As tier. Comma. Now, current underscore date. Current underscore date. Current underscore date. From where? From customer table. I'll give it an alias of C. Now, let's left join those tables we actually use now. Left join payment, that's P, on customer underscore ID. That's what they have in common. Equals payment customer underscore ID. Now, the next one now, I'll group by. These are the two tables we actually use. Group by for the aggregation now. Group by customer. Now, the next thing I'll do is I'll just group by for the aggregation. Group by. What do I want to use to group by now? I want to use from the customers table. I'll use the customer underscore ID to actually group it for me. Now, put a semicolon. Now, I will select what I want to bring out now. Select all. From where now? Customer underscore tier underscore snapshot. That's the table. Where clause now. Where snapshot underscore date equals current underscore date, put a semicolon. Now I will end this now, the stop procedure end with this sign. Now delimiter, I bring out my delimiter again, put a semicolon. Now before we proceed, I made mention of voucher the other time and char. Now in the case of this voucher and char, the voucher now is like a what? A variable length text. It stores only what is needed. And in case of char now is what? Fixed length text. Always stores what? End characters. Now the char now is best for, let's say, for codes. Let's say for instance now, in you are using like an abbreviation, let's say NGA for Nigeria, USA for United States of America, CAD for Canada, and so on. Now in the case of this char, this char, what it actually does is, if we use it to, for instance now, where I use this voucher now, if I use char here now and I said 20 characters now, and I later now put what? 5 characters. So that's in that case, the remaining 15 space for the 15 character now, I will leave it as space. But in the case of the voucher now, voucher will ignore the space and and what? Adjust it to that 5 character. Note of that. Now let's run this analysis, let's run this query now. No error. Now let's ask call. Now what's the name of the procedure now? The name of the procedure, this is the name of the procedure. Let me scroll up. This is it. Classify. Let me just copy it. Now let's come down here where we want to call it out. Control. Now let's run this now. Control enter. You can see now you are using a safe mode and you try to, okay, let's remove it from safe mode now. Now to remove the safe mode, that will be set SQL underscore save underscore update. So once you do this, underscore update equals 0. So you're able to update anything you actually want to do. Control enter. You can see no error. So now you can now call out your procedure. Now let's call out the procedure now. Control enter. You can see now everything works perfectly well. Now with this query now, what we have here result to this now. This query we create. Now we were able to build a what? A store procedure that help us classify customers into loyalty tiers. That is, their bronze, silver, and gold based on how much they have spent. Now the importance of this is that if we are working in a what? In a business that runs customer loyalty program, now we will need to know who is our top spenders every day, and this will enable our team to able to launch target offer or reward programs based on the what? Recent customers behavior. Now first thing we actually did was that we actually created a what? A table called what? Customer underscore tier underscore snapshot. Now and this store each customer total spending, loyalty tier, and default loyalty tier which they fall into, and what? Snapshot. That's it. Now followed by what? We delete any old data for what? For total, and any old data for today to avoid what? Duplicate. And we classify them into a what? A tier using a simple case statement, which is here, where we use the word a case statement whereby it sum this, and if it is less than 100, give it what? Bronze. If it is between 100 and 500, give it silver, and if it is greater than 500, give it gold. And once this is done, we select a what? We select today's result to confirm the snapshot actually work, which is here. Select from customer underscore t underscore snapshot, where the snapshot underscore date is called to current date. That means we want today's own. Now if we are to give a decision as a data engineer on this now, this is great for real world use case of what stored procedures in automated reporting and segmentation workflow. Perfect for powering dashboards, CRM, and also what email campaigns. That will be all for this lesson. See you in the next lesson. Bye for now.